Fearless Felix. The jump seen around the world. Millions of people watch live on the internet and their televisions as a pair of white boots push out beyond the round door of the capsule. The curve of Earth hangs majestically in the background as the legs of the chute appear, followed by a body and a helmet. Felix Gardner sits on the edge of as he disconnects the oxygen tube and the helmet strap. He pulls himself forward to stand on the exterior step of the capsule. The camera angle is looking down now, over his helmet at the expanse of Earth beneath him. The people watching hold their breath as he inches forward, gives a small salute and steps off into space. In only 4 seconds, this man in the white pressurized suit is little more than a white dot in the distance. Felix has jumped into the record books once again. Who is Felix? Born in 1969 in Salzburg, Austria, Felix has always loved being high in the air. When he started skydiving as a teenager, Felix felt he had found his calling. He joined the Australian military and spent the next 5 years as part of a skydiving demonstration and competition team. The disciplined and work ethic instilled in him by the military would prove invaluable his future career. In his 20s, Felix began training to become the base jumper. This dangerous sport involves jumping off a cliff or high structure, such as a building or bridge, parachuting to the ground. His time as a skydiver paid off because in 1999, Felix had set his first world record. At the time, the Petronas Towers in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, were the tallest buildings in the world. The authorities wouldn't allow Felix to jump off the tower, so he disguised himself as a businessman and snuck in with a parachute hidden in a briefcase. Climbing out on the long boom, used his window washers. He jumped 1,479 feet to the ground. Felix's records stood until 2007 when he broke it by jumping off Taiwan's Taipei 101 building, which was then the tallest building in the world. Once again slipping past security, he found his way to the top and jumped 1,670 feet, 509 meters to the ground, a world record that stood until 2010. More records. Felix set another record in 1999 for the lowest base jump. During low jumps, timing is everything because fractions of a second can make the difference between deploying a parachute and hitting the ground. In the earlier morning hours, Felix climbed a rope over a right arm of a Christ Redeemer statue overlooking Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, and jumped off the hand, falling 95 feet 29 meters, a record that still stands. In 2003, Felix jumped out of an airplane over Dover, England, wearing a 6-foot 1.8 carbon fiber wing. He became the first man to fly across the English Channel without power and outside of a vehicle, landing near Calais, France, about 14 minutes later. Felix has continued to push the limits over the years. He jumped off the tallest bridge in the world and leaped into a pitch-black cave. Between skydiving and base jumping, he had taken part in over 2,500 jumps. Felix has said that he doesn't think of himself as a thrill seeker. For him, it's about planning each jump and thinking through every scenario with his team to make sure they achieve their goal and no one is hurt. The Stratos Project. Felix began working on his biggest jump ever in 2005. Yanis Spoonsor set out to future scientific research and break the records of speed, altitude, and duration of free fall that Joe Kittinger set in 1960 as part of the U.S. Air Force Project Excelsior. Joe jumped out of a capsule attached to a high-altitude balloon and fell 102,800 feet, 31,333 meters, in a pressurized suit. His free fall lasted 4 minutes and 36 seconds, and he reached speeds over 600 miles per hour before pulling his main parachute. Felix felt he could go higher and fall faster and longer than Joe, but it wouldn't be easy. It would take 7 years and a team of over 100 people. Each piece of equipment had to be carefully designed, and each step planned to the last detail. The suit. It takes specialized equipment for a person to survive at high altitudes. At the peak of Mount Everest, which is 29,029 feet, 8,848 meters high, people need oxygen tanks and extremely warm clothing to survive. Felix planned to jump over 120,000 feet, 36,576 meters, more than 4 times the height of Mount Everest. At that altitude, it is extremely cold. And there is almost no air, which means no air pressure. Without protection, the liquid in Felix's body would turn to gas, killing him almost instantly. Engineers designed Felix's suit and helmet to keep his body at the constant temperature and pressure. The suit also has a variety of built-in sensors that gather data during his jump for scientists and engineers to study later. As Felix spent more time preparing for his big jump, the enclosed space of the suit began to terrify him. He had developed claustrophobia, which caused him to suffer panic attacks. He couldn't breathe and felt as though he might pass out. Felix's fears threatened to jeopardize the entire project, but he refused to let that happen. He worked closely with doctors and learned ways to cope with his claustrophobia. Balloon and capsule. Felix's team used thin plastic sheets to construct balloons so massive that the plastic sheets were laid flat. That would cover almost 40 football fields. Once filled with helium, the balloon is then over 55 stories tall. As the balloon rises, the outside air pressure decreases, causing the helium to expand until the balloon appears full. The balloon lifts 2,900 pound, 1,315 kilogram capsule, which helps Felix comfortable and safe on his ascent. The capsule has 4 main parts: the pressure sphere, cage, shell, and base of crush pads. Each part performs a special function to protect Felix from deadly high-altitude environment and possibly of a crash. Test jumps. On March 15, 2012, after 7 years of work, countless tests, and a number of delays, Felix and his team were ready for their first manned test jump. Felix boarded the capsule in the desert outside Roswell, New Mexico, and rode into the atmosphere for 1 hour and 40 minutes, reaching an altitude of 71,615 feet. His free fall, which lasted 3 minutes and 40 seconds, reached the speed of 365 miles per hour. The first test jump was a complete success. The second test jump took place on July 25, 2012. The capsule reached an altitude of 97,146 feet before Felix jumped. He spent 3 minutes and 38 seconds in free fall, reaching the speed of 537 miles per hour. While the jump was successful overall, the capsule was damaged during its landing and had to be repaired. The Big Jump. October 14, 2012, in a day many people will remember, Felix boarded the capsule and headed into the sky one last time. He rose 128,100 feet, breaking Joe Kittinger's record by 25,300 feet before opening the door as the world watched. After performing the final safety checks and disconnecting from the capsule, Felix stood up, saluted, and jumped. His speed increased until he was falling at an incredible 834 miles per hour, more than 70 miles per hour faster than the speed of sound, faster than anyone had ever traveled outside of a vehicle. Near the end of his 4 minutes and 22 seconds in free fall, Felix began to spin dangerously. If he could not bring himself under control, the spinning would force the blood away from the center of his body, a potentially fatal problem. Felix managed to strengthen himself out of the deploy. His parachute, Felix's team, including Joe Kittinger, cheered. The entire jump took less than 10 minutes, but it shattered 2 world records. Those 10 minutes also proved scientists and engineers with huge amounts of data that they can now use to make high altitude and space travel safer for astronauts, space tourists, and others. While Felix is proud of these achievements, the experience humbled him. Before those 10 minutes began, before the records were broken, Felix stood on the edge of the capsule and said, "I know the whole world is watching now, and I wish the world could see what I see. Sometimes you have to go up really high to understand how small you are."